Hello everyone. I started doing some little video lectures last year and students seemed to like them, so I thought I would give you a little bit of information about functions of language. This seems to be the one aspect that's the most difficult for people to get a firm grasp on, mainly because you haven't really thought about it before in the terminology that we're using or in the lens that we're using. Basically, the whole notion of function of language is that language has a purpose, and we pick up that when we acquire language, the different ways we use language. And a person named Michael Halliday was the one who really conceptualized that and gave labels to that in terms of spoken language. And then most of those functions are also applicable in written language. Halliday labeled 7 different functions, and he gave them interesting names that sometimes we need to translate. So the first one that we'll talk about is instrumental, and that's really language that's used to communicate our preferences, our choices, our wants, our wishes, our needs. So when a very young child learns that right away, when they want milk or they want to be held or they want to have some other need, crying is an instrumental use of language. So that can be transferred into written language as well when children communicate needs, wants, wishes, preferences in language. In school, we can also do that in terms of role playing, persuading, problem solving, and other kinds of writing. Another kind of function is personal, and that's when we use language to express our personality or our individuality. It's sometimes referred to as the here I am function, announcing oneself in the world. Bloggers are terrific at this use of personal language because a blog is a way of saying here I am to the world. Diaries and those sorts of things as well. A lot of personal writing. Another one, Halliday called interactional, and we might call that language for social relationships. This is when we use language to talk with other people. People sitting around talking over lunch or dinner would be a good example. And when we use dramatic play in the classroom or social play, or this is interactional language. Excuse me here just a second, I have to move my screen over here. Another kind of language that Halliday labeled was regulatory, and probably kids hear lots and lots of regulatory language because most of school is filled with regulatory language. This is language used to control the behavior of others. And it's a lot of telling others what to do, rules, giving instructions. And so there's probably a real plethora of regulatory language, and you see that in kids' writing as well when they write things like keep out or this room is mine, that sort of thing. Another kind of language use is representational. Again, that's a little difficult label, but it really means language that's used to explain. I'll tell you, I'll explain, I'll convey messages. Another one that I really like is heuristic, and this is language that's used to find things out, to wonder, to hypothesize. And when you have those 4-year-olds that say how come and why, they are using that heuristic language. And of course we encourage inquiry in school, and that's definitely a heuristic use of language. And then there's imaginative, and this is language that's used to explore, to create, to entertain, and in storytelling and in pretending, both in written and oral language. So while Halliday had those functions primarily in spoken, most of those also appear in written language. Written language also has some unique functions in terms of things like establishing ownership or identity when we label things or claim things, establishing authority, no trespassing, keep out, which is regulatory, but it's written language form. Yeah. Written language also makes language much more permanent and portable, though with modern technology, oral language can also be permanent and portable, or reasonably permanent and portable. And finally, written language is used to record and store information. When we get into our analysis of children in written language, and in their literacy events, you'll want to be able to look for the holiday functions and use that terminology, as well as the specific functions of written language. So I wish you well in thinking about the functions of language. It's a very interesting thing to investigate how children are using language, what purpose they put language to. And I hope you'll have fun learning more about that as we analyze literacy events in the rest of the term.